Man, it just keeps getting better and better. Turn this brightness down a little bit. Well, there you go. Now, shall I skip this? Obviously, my... Okay. Oh my lord. Where do I even begin with this? I feel like I've just had an out-of-body experience. So, thanks for watching. If you have been watching any of the streams that I've been putting up. Previously, I would usually do the streams with myself in the corner so we could do the commentating and all that annoying crap that other people do, and I do also do that sometimes. I only really do that for games that are about 5 to 8 hours long because, quite frankly, you don't want to hear me talking all day, and it can become quite a kind of a thing where you're having to kind of interact with what's going on and talk at the same time and say something interesting. So, whatever. Especially becomes a thing when the game is like super long. So I wouldn't really do it for Elden Ring or anything like that. Maybe just in every now and again I'd pop in and do something. But usually what I do is I do little half hour or 40-minute or hour long play sessions and then just plaster them up on YouTube. And they get they don't get loads of views. Some of them get like 150. Some of them get 2. It's completely random what sort of locks into the algorithm. So if you've watched it this far, I've seen any of my plays, J plays over the last sort of 3 months. I do appreciate you tuning in and all that. So Black Myth Wukong, I started it about 3 months ago. I've been playing it a bit. You know, I'm a father of 2, busy man, etc., and I very rarely get the chance to play as long as I would like to or as I have done in the past. So I have to do these little bite-sized chunks. It's worked out quite well, and especially with this game, because this game is essentially like a boss rush game. You fight one boss, you work your way through an area, find some collectibles, fight another boss, so it worked out quite well for me as a busy human in his late 40s that I could sort of dip in and dip out and play a bit, feel like I'd advanced, and then move on to get on with my life, and then come back and play a little bit more, feel like I'd advanced, that kind of thing. So the game itself, I'm probably the last person on earth to review it because it has been reviewed about 1 billion times. It was up for Game of the Year, which it absolutely should have won. I know Astrobot was a particular fan favorite, and I think appealed to a much wider audience. Therefore, I think it probably, and aside from being really good as well, and I have played bits of Astrobot, I've not completed it. I think that's, that's completely justified as to why that won. In my opinion, Wukong should have won. It's such an epic game. It took me like 70 hours from start to finish. I'm looking now. I first uploaded 3 months ago. And I've uploaded 110 videos on this, which are all sort of broken up over that time. I did really, really enjoy my time with it. It is a careful balance between a kind of Dark Souls type game / Sekiro. It's that sort of approach. But it also has elements of like God of War, because you're going around and you're finding chests and things. I know you do that in Dark Souls too, but there feels much more of a kind of arcadey God of War kind of approach to this. I just really enjoyed it. I loved all of the character designs. I loved all of the voice acting. I played it in English. I'm assuming there is a Chinese version that you can switch your language to. I haven't looked at that. I'd be surprised if there isn't. But either way, I thought the British voice acting, which can sometimes let these games down a bit, was outstanding. Like, so good. And from the get-go, if you're as old and weathered and as wise as I am, which, I don't know about wise, but old and weathered for sure, you'll remember back in the 80s, they used to play the reruns of Monkey Magic on TV, which was essentially the story of Wukong, which is all tied into the Journey to the West epic saga, which is, if it's 1800s, might even be before then. But it certainly is a collection of stories about this monkey that goes on various adventures, and the TV show was like that as well. And in the TV show, I'm not quite so sure how it works with the original texts and everything, but in the TV show, the monkey was like a slave to a young prince or princess. I think it was a prince, and his band of cronies, and they had to travel across wastelands and fighting bad guys and solving mysteries and having adventures. And that was the TV show. So I'm assuming that was then based on what the original texts were. The original texts, I don't know how much of it has been translated into English. Chunks of it certainly have. I looked at maybe buying, I know there was a graphic novel, which was like came out last year, which was like a British version of the kind of the highlights of the overall story, which had been translated into English, the British English. But it sold out before. I mean, I couldn't even get on the pre-orders. They just sold out like hotcakes. So whether it was anything linked to the anticipation for this game or not, I don't know. But I know that there's a whole load of really good stories out there that I'm definitely going to follow up, having played this game. And as you're going through this game, the story is a hard one to judge because the story is excellent. Like, every single beat of it is excellent. It's very clear what your motivations are. It's very clear what you're trying to achieve. It sets the scene very early on with this mean old monkey who gets knocked down by the gods, and you're on a path to basically follow his journey and restore the myth and become the next Wukong, and et cetera, et cetera. And by doing that, you have to go through these various different tasks in order to gain various items on the way that allow you to do that. So the story is excellent, but then what you've got in this game is you've got characters and creatures and beasts and birds and lions and all these different kind of antagonists and characters that are also your friends that come in, and they have a very clear name. It's anyone that knows that story will get the connections. There's subplots going on that I have no idea what they are, having not read any of the texts or aware of the kind of the myth behind all of this. So to go into the section of your menu where you have all the literature that kind of breaks down who these people are, what they are, the stories behind them. I mean, it's just an epic amount of reading, which is for the first time in a game forever. I mean, other than like Dark Souls, I guess you do get into the lore of that. But for the first time in a game like this, I really felt connected to all of that. I was really interested to find out where all these characters came from, what their stories are, what their backstories were. And if you didn't want to read any of that, you could still go through the game and still have a great time. Ignorance is bliss. You don't need to know the behind the scenes stuff for every single thing, because the challenge is still there. So story, 10 out of 10, of course. Presentation, oh my god, this game is beautiful. Like, every single scene, every animation, every opening vista, every bit of snow that comes down, every time your movement, the way that you carry yourself throughout the game, the way you hold your staff, the way you flip between jumping to rolling to pulling out your staff if it's from your ear or from your hair. I think it's from your ear. I can never quite remember. Behind your ear, whatever. But like, all of those animations are just seamless. They're absolutely flawless. There wasn't a moment where this didn't look beautiful, to the point where I'd be just going off to fight like an epic boss, and I just have to stop for a minute and just look at what's going on. And there's like layers upon layers upon layers of depth. There's birds flying around. There's trees flapping in the wind. There's leaves in the sky. There's mud being kicked up from the ground. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And I had it on performance. I didn't even have it on the kind of the highest setting of whatever, which I assume is like 60 frames a second or 120 FPS or whatever, which would basically make it really sort of pop. how much more, I'm not sure how much more he could do it, but I guess it pops more, but then drops it to 30 frames, I think. I fiddled around with that at the start, but I settled on the performance, and that was the way to go. Performance was unbelievably good. The interactivity with the environment, unbelievably good. All of the characters that you're fighting, just the kind of the minions, all unbelievably well designed. Everything looked different. They all did different things. So you approach this guy like that, you'd approach this guy like that. And then when they're together, you'd have to kind of anticipate one move compared to the other that you'd normally do with that guy. And then when there's three of them, you're like having to kind of really think strategically about how you're going to take this guy down first and then this guy. And by that time, this thing's recharged. And, so there was a real approach, a strategic approach to just the general walkthrough and gameplay, which I loved. I also thought that the way that the combat worked within the characters, excellent. The way the combat worked within the bosses, amazing. Like, I can't remember what they said. There's something like, I think it's like 300 or 600 bosses in this. It wouldn't surprise me. There's so many encounters with so many different bosses. Just really creative, really interesting. No two are the same. One's a big lion, jumping tiger or whatever, jumping at you. One's a giant sort of dragon flying through the sky. One's a big baby. There's one moment where you're running through the shoulders of a guy and you've been hiding in his bag, and then you come out of his bag and you're running through like a sort of a setting that's been built onto his outfit, and then you're in the walls. And I mean, like, the creativity behind this is just amazing. Like, there are rules, but then suddenly, like, there's this one moment, spoilers, where your sort of hog character friend, who I can never remember his name, he gets like a praying mantis, this very tiny boss, and he jumps in his mouth, and then you go in his mouth after him, and you have a fight inside the guy's stomach. I mean, there's all this creativity just oozing out of this game, and I just thought absolutely brilliant. I absolutely loved it. I'm getting a rest mode coming up on my PS5, so I'll have to turn it off in a sec. But so overall, just gameplay brilliant, story brilliant, presentation brilliant, voice acting brilliant, all of the capture and whatever was going on within that, absolutely amazing. I mean, the studio, I'm trying to remember what the studio's called. I did actually pull it out here. Developer Game Science. Now, I think this is their first kind of foray into Western games, into selling things. I could be wrong about that, but as that studio goes, I think this is their first game, which is just mind-blowing. Just really, really excellent. Like I said, it should have been Game of the Year, but that's in my opinion. I just love the Dark Souls kind of links to it all, but it was still kind of very accessible in that kind of arcade way. I just think this game was outstanding. And it was, like I said at the start, like, I felt like I was having like an out-of-body experience in some of these fights that were going on. You kind of, when you fight, it's like Dark Souls, when you finally beat the boss, there's a feeling of like, thank God I did it, right? There's that absolute rush of adrenaline right up to the point where you're suddenly then like sort of just elated. But with this, I kind of got a lot of that kind of feedback when I was playing. But there was also an element of, I could really feel myself learning like how the character moved, changing strategies for how you'd attack one boss versus another, finding their weak points, sometimes beating them first time, sometimes not beating them for like 50 goes, but like, just all the time learning about how to approach those characters. I also did all of the side quests, which I would argue it's easily like half of the game. That's why it took me like 65 or 70 hours or whatever. All the side quests are impeccably good. This game does not drop the ball at all. It didn't pepper loads of stuff in there that would be like really boring and really kind of like, felt, there wasn't a moment where I was having to grind anything. Everything that I was doing in game was naturally happening. It was hard. It was difficult at times, but I felt like I was progressing all the time. By doing the side quests, I really felt like I was getting a new piece of armor over here. I was getting a new spell or something over there, and it was starting to come together. I really felt like I was building this character. And the fact that your character actually doesn't speak throughout the whole thing, and, you are a monkey, but you don't speak. Some games it doesn't work so well with. With this one in particular, I just felt like he really felt like me. It really felt like my own character that I was creating. And all the choice of armor was brilliant. You didn't have to do very much very early on to get some different armor sets and things like that. I do think that like the free, say the free, if you pre-ordered, you got like some extra armor and like an extra gourd and things like that. I mean, I hardly used that at all. And also there wasn't the option to kind of like to keep kind of pumping more experience points into those to kind of build those into specific weapons. They got to a certain point and then they just weren't worth using anymore, and that was quite early on in the game. So I was surprised that the other thing that I did think was that maybe in some of these cases where it's I like that armor but I like the look of that, and I think Assassin's Creed has always done this particularly well, which is or certainly recently, which is that you can use there's a whole load of other games that do it as well, like Elden Ring, I think, allows you to do it, if I remember. You can use the stats of one piece of armor, but you can look like the other one. So you have the ability to control what your character looks like and also control the stats of his outfit separately. Whereas in this game, it was locked together, and I wonder if that's something they might change in the future, because I think that's quite a good thing. I'd quite like to run around with all the feathers and all the armor and stuff on, but for some of the fights, if I was to do like a New Game Plus, you'd want to change your armor out for various boss fights. But if you wanted to stay looking like that, it would be good to have that option. Anyway, that's literally the only criticism I have of the game. Everything else is amazing. So the other thing is, obviously, you have all your spells that you can kind of set up and build up. You have your sparks, which are like your experience points, which you can spend into different areas. So you can train up your fighting abilities, your ability with the staff, your ability with how to use spells, how to freeze time, how to bring all your other monkeys along with you so that you can fight as a team. Like, all these things are just like assets that you can use to strategically attack your bosses and to overcome those problems, which I just think is amazing. They gave you such a large variety of things that you could do, and they all combine together really well. So if you wanted to use a few of these, one of these and one of those for one fight, that worked really well. Then you want to switch it out, you can go over here and switch it all around and then do that again for someone else. So it was really allowing you to tailor that. And it also, at the shrines where you save your progress and where you go to the Ryu scroll section or whatever to kind of upgrade your points and all that kind of stuff, and change your armor, craft your armor. It did mean that you could respec all of your points at any time. So if you found that you'd put everything into a certain part of your skill tree, and then you came against a boss that was like really difficult, and it would have been better for you to spec it in a slightly different way, you can strip everything back to zero and put your points all into something that would help you defeat that guy. And when you defeated that guy, you could go back and strip it all out again and put it back how it was, or just keep constantly changing the configuration, which I thought was excellent, because it encouraged me to play in a different way than I would have done in the past. Just really, really amazing. I absolutely love this game. I would thoroughly recommend that you try it. Recency bias or not, it has two endings. So I did the original ending, then I went back and defeated Erlang, and got the final ending, and just really, really satisfying, both of them. You only get the final ending if you've done all the side quests, but whatever, if you're just whizzing through it or if you're doing the side quests, you get rewarded both ways. Just really amazing. I would thoroughly recommend playing it. It's a 10 out of 10. Like I said, recency bias, as I was just starting to say. It's in my top 5 games now. I absolutely think it's amazing. I'd be surprised if there's not a second one. I feel like they've kind of thrown a lot into this. I don't know what they would do for a second one, but I'm absolutely fascinated to find out. So that's it. That's all I've got to say. So I hope you enjoyed all this. I loved it. I'm kind of glad it's over, but I already miss it. You know how that feels. I'm going to go and sit in the dark room now. Just contemplate my life. Until next time, be good, stay safe, and be kind to one another. Peace out. We gone! Oh, oh.